Good morning. Good Sunday, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the South Hills, also known as Sunnyhill. I hope you are feeling all the love here this morning as you came in our doors. Our mission here at Sunnyhill is to create a more just and compassionate community within and beyond our walls. My name is Mary Jo Hennessy, and I serve as a worship associate for this congregation. If you are a newcomer or a visitor to our congregation, please, not now, but later, go to sunnyhill.org and click on the button that says New to Sunnyhill. You can receive more information about our congregation, sign up to receive our weekly email newsletter called The Beat, where you will be able to find lots of information going on in our congregation. There are a lot of activities, social justice activities, so please take a read every Wednesday. And make sure you get all the way to the bottom, because sometimes you miss the good stuff if you don't do that. If you would like to be greeted as a newcomer after the service, please take a red mug, kind of appropriate for our Valentine's weekend here. And members will seek you out and warmly welcome you and tell you everything you want to know about Unitarian Universalism over your cup of coffee. And if you are joining us online today, a warm welcome to you. Please let us know you're here by saying hello or good morning in the comments on Facebook or YouTube. And much love to you virtually. And for those of you here in person, you don't need to be electronically connected since you're here. So please silence those cell phones and electronic devices so that we can enjoy the service uninterrupted by buzzing or ringing. And right now, we have a brief public service announcement, very important, about our upcoming service auction. Elizabeth.
So good morning, everyone. My name's Elizabeth, and I am helping with the service auction this year. I have been a member of Sunnyhill. Mark and I, my husband Mark and I have been members here for about 25 years, and I'm willing to bet we have probably come to 20 service auctions. So I'm here to tell you that it is the biggest and most fun party that this church has the entire year. So I want you to come because of that, because it builds community. As a sideline, it is also our biggest fundraiser of the year, but that's not why I want you to come. So for those of you that are new to the service auction and have never been to it before, I'm going to be at a table right outside, so grab your coffee, come by. I will tell you what people have donated in the past, what possibly we're looking for this year. Mark your calendars, Saturday, April 15th, service auction. Get your coffee, see me in the fellowship hall.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And this year's theme gives you the chance to pull out your old prom gowns, so value added. Today's service is titled A Puritan Valentine. The Unitarian side, they had all the love as well. The Unitarian side of our UU heritage can be traced back to the Puritans, perhaps one of the most illiberal and intolerant religious groups in history. How do we reconcile our current commitments to liberation with this narrow-minded strain of our religious DNA? Our opening words were written by Eileen Karpelis. Out of our separate lives, we come to walk this path together for an hour or a day, for a week or a month, or a series of months and years. For this space of time, we travel together, making much or little or nothing at all of the fact that another walks beside us. We can keep our eyes cast down, protecting ourselves from the pain we risk whenever we allow another human being to touch us, living safe little lives inside our sterile wrappings. Or we can reach out, risking a little or a lot or every coin we have because we believe that loving and being loved is the only game in town. The choice is ours. Those who risk much lose much. But they are also the only ones who ever win. Please join me in saying the words to light our chalice. In a world filled with darkness, filled with the darkness of hate, let us shine the light of love.
Good morning. Please rise in spirit or body to sing our opening hymn, Sing and Rejoice. It's a round. So we're going to split right down the middle. Yeah, sorry, you guys. You're going to be on opposing teams right there. And I'll lead this side of the room singing first, and Rev Jim will lead that side of the room singing second. We'll sing it together once in unison and then begin the round.
I want my side to be like really strong, okay?
All together.
Sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice. Let all things living now sing and rejoice.
Sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice.
Sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice. Let all things living now sing and rejoice. Sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice. Let all things living now sing and rejoice. Sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice. Let all things living now sing and rejoice. Sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice. Let all things living now sing and rejoice. Sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice.
Repeat that last line.
Let all things living now sing and rejoice.
Thank you.
Thank you, please be seated.
Good morning. If there are any kiddos present that want to come up for our time for all ages, now's your chance. Good morning, friends. Good morning, everyone. All right. The Reverend Thomas Starr King is credited as coining the phrase, "Universalists believe that God is too good to keep people from heaven, and the Unitarians believe that people are too good to be kept out of heaven." Reverend Jim will be spending time talking about our Unitarian ancestors today, but this story reflects our Universalist understanding of God, that God is goodness and love. When I was young, my sister taught me how to make bubble letters, which I thought would surely impress all of my friends. So before all the other children arrived, I drew and meticulously colored in big, wobbly, red bubble letters, "God is love," on the whiteboard in my kindergarten Sunday school classroom. I even put little hearts instead of the dots on the I and in the circles because I just loved doing that as a kid. Does anybody else like to do hearts? I do. See, I knew I wasn't alone there. Not long into class, after all the children had arrived and pretty much ignored my artistry, one of my all-time favorite teachers picked up an eraser and began to swipe over the discolored old board, much to my dismay. But I was even more dismayed that my artistic creation did not seem to be fading, despite her vigorous attempt. Mysterious, miraculous, perhaps. Turns out that red marker that was, in my defense, on the tray was actually a red Sharpie. The tears started, as I recall, right about the time friends began whispering that I was definitely in huge trouble. I was as mortified as a 6-year-old can get. I was mortified, that is, only until that beautiful, wise Sunday school teacher scooped me into her arms in a clear moment of amazing grace. I heard her deep alto laugh in my ear, and she said, "Oh no, no one is in trouble. Don't you see, dear children, this is just perfect. What can erase God's love? Nothing." She ended the warm hug with a squeeze and then gleefully picked up an actual dry erase marker and began writing around my unintentionally semi-permanent Sharpie art all the things that we could think to yell out that might make us feel unlovable in the eyes of God. Lying, cheating in school, saying bad words, hitting your brother, cutting in line for the slide, chewing gum in church. It was a lot for a kid, those conservative religious rules in the 90s CCD class. But then, with a dramatic flourish, she again picked up the eraser and wiped it all away, leaving only "God is love." God is love in red, wobbly bubble letters. It's my only memory from a lesson from kindergarten Sunday school class. Maybe it's the only one that counts. You see, friends, sometimes when we try hard, we make a mess anyways. We're all just doing the best we can. It's important for us to remember to laugh, to hug, and to marvel at the truth that remains, which in the end is only love. And with that, we will head to our RE class. Thanks, friends. Thanks, Ella. Thank you. Thank you.
May joy surround you as you go.
The choir is going to be singing to you in Italian this morning, a song called Fa una canzone. It loosely translates to "Sing me a song with no clashing notes. If you want me to love you, if you want my favor. Sing me something without any harshness in it, because my ears just can't handle it. Sing me so sweetly till I fall asleep."
This is a time in our service when we share joys and sorrows that have been submitted by members of the congregation. After each joy or sorrow that I share, please respond by saying, "We hold you in our hearts." As it happens, there's just one that was submitted this week. It's a joy from Jeff Vipperman, following up on his concern last week. Jeff says, I'm pleased to report that my sister's brain surgery went very well. I appreciate the thoughts and concern from the congregation. To Jeff, his sister, and family, we hold you in our hearts. As we sing our meditation hymn, I invite anyone who would like to do so to come up, take a candle, light it, and place it silently in the sand.
A stillness, soul, a stillness, let the stillness carry me. Find the silence, oh, the silence, let the silence carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit, giving power, I will find true harmony. Seek the essence, hold the essence, let the essence carry me. Let
Please join me in the spirit of meditation or prayer. Life sometimes takes us for a roller coaster ride, takes us through highs and lows, twists and turns, joys and sorrows, frustration and contentment, restless excitement, and bone-numbing boredom, a dizzying series of experiences and emotions coming at us in a way that can cause a kind of life-induced spiritual motion sickness. In the midst of these hairpin turns and abrupt rises and falls, how we long for stillness, for even the briefest reprieve from one thing after the next, tumbling, cascading, madly and mindlessly, clattering endlessly toward no apparent end. When we are able to just take a moment to step off the ride, to pause its wild motion and simply be here. When we are able to make room for stillness in our heads and in our hearts, what a difference it can make. Let us pause now in silence as we sense both the motion and the stillness of our lives. May we return to this place of stillness again and again. May we experience solace and strength in such moments. And in so doing, may our essence be restored. Amen. Virtually every religious tradition that I know of is inclined to trace its roots as far back in time as possible. Doing so tends to lend some credence and credibility to any religious tradition or movement, to give it some kind of historic heft. In Christian and historically Christian religious movements, the ultimate goal is to trace those roots all the way back to the Apostle Paul and to Jesus himself. While this exercise might lend some historic weight to any given tradition or denomination and helps us understand how a particular tradition came to be what it is today, this tracing of roots also inevitably leads toward unearthing some unsavory or even shameful aspects of our religious history. For some decades now, UUs have traced at least part of our history back to the New England Puritans, who arrived in America in the 1600s. A series of theological and ecclesiological disagreements among descendants of the first American Puritans eventually led to something known as the Unitarian controversy, which in turn led to the formation of the American Unitarian Association in the early 19th century. The AUA eventually consolidated with the Universalist Church of America in 1961 to become the Unitarian Universalist Association, as it is known today. I just consolidated about 200 years of our church history in a minute and a half. The Puritans were an absolutely fascinating group of religious reformers who provide us with an excellent example of just how complex and just how challenging history, and religious history in particular, can be. The term Puritan in popular American culture is mostly used as a pejorative term, meaning prudish, cold, and emotionally and spiritually constricted. American journalist H.L. Mencken famously said that a Puritan is one who suspects somewhere someone is having a good time. In this prudish, fun-hating caricature of Puritans, it's this that led to a series of social media memes that were created several years ago called Puritan Valentines, which is where I got the title of my sermon for today. These Puritan Valentines are, I think, clever and really pretty funny. Here is one of them. It shows two stern-looking, plainly dressed Puritans at the center of the card. The text at the top says, "You almost make my heart dance." And at the bottom it says, "And dancing is forbidden." Another one depicting a Puritan girl carrying flowers reads at the top, "I need you." And at the bottom, "To help raise livestock and crops, or surely we will starve to death come winter." There is, of course, a certain amount of truth contained in these cards. The Puritans did equate dancing with promiscuity and sinfulness and believed that dancing might tempt people into committing adultery. So they prohibited dancing among mixed groups of men and women. And it's also true that at least for the early Puritans in America, marriage and procreation were linked to survival. There's not a whole lot of room for romance when one is struggling just to live through the next winter. So it makes sense that married relationships were primarily about helping to harvest the crops and produce children who would eventually help harvest the crops. It is not accurate, however, to say that Puritans believed sex or sexual love were sinful. Puritans were Calvinists, and John Calvin wrote that conjugal intercourse is a thing that is pure, honorable, and holy because it is a pure institution of God. It is a foolish imagination, Calvin writes elsewhere, that celibacy is a virtue. Within the context of married life, Puritans did, in fact, extol their version of romantic love. If you read the poetry of Anne Bradstreet, for example, you will see a great deal of passion and verses that sing the praises of romance and love. But the Puritan ideal was clearly wedded romantic love. So maybe the Puritans would have been open to the concept of Valentine's Day within the context of a married relationship, but they would never have openly celebrated it, mostly because it began as a Roman Catholic Saints' Day, And for the Puritans, anything that had to do with the Catholic Church was anathema. One of the worst things you could be called by a Puritan was a papist. However, the more problematic aspect of our Puritan heritage for us as Unitarian Universalists has virtually nothing to do with the concepts of sexual love and romance. Rather, it has to do with the Puritan history of practicing religious persecution and intolerance. Puritanism has been quite rightly criticized because of the exclusive way in which it was practiced. Despite what the great American foundational myth might say, the Puritans came to America not to establish religious freedom for all, but only for themselves. And they were ruthless and cruel to anyone who did not belong to their group, including the indigenous peoples whose land they stole and whose lives they ended in shocking numbers. In New England, the Puritans executed not just those whom they deemed savages or witches. They also put to death anyone whom they considered a dangerous heretic. Take, for example, the case of Mary Dyer. Dyer first ran afoul of Massachusetts authorities for supporting theological dissenter Anne Hutchinson. As a result, Dyer and her family were forced to move to Rhode Island in 1638. Converted to Quakerism in England in the 1650s, Dyer returned to New England and was 3 times arrested and banished from Massachusetts for spreading Quaker principles. Returning to Massachusetts a 4th time, she was hanged on June 1st, 1660. I think that we can all agree that hanging Quakers is not a good look. But persecuting and killing Quakers and other religious dissenters was par for the course for 17th century New England Puritans. And there's something that does seem particularly cruel and troubling about executing Quakers who were pacifists and posed no real threat to Puritans or any other religious group. On the other hand, the Puritan concept of covenant, if applied in a more inclusive way than the Puritans did themselves, is a great gift to us and continues to be a bedrock of our UU faith. The goal of the Puritans was to reform the Church of England, which they believed had become too much like the Roman Catholic Church in its structure and in its reliance on creeds that they believed had little or nothing to do with the Bible, which they took as their guidebook for living the Christian life. Because of their rejection of traditional religious creeds, Puritans organized themselves around the concept and practice of covenant. Covenant was not a new concept as it dates back to the book of Genesis and the famous covenants between God and Noah, between God and Abraham, between God and Moses and the Israelites, and so on. But the Puritans extended the concept of covenant not just vertically between God and humankind, but also horizontally between and among all members of the faith. One of the earliest Puritan covenants states, "We must uphold a familiar commerce together in all meekness, gentleness, patience, and liberality. We must delight in each other, make others' conditions our own, rejoice together, mourn together, labor and suffer together, always having before our eyes our commission and community in the work, our community as members of the same body." The sentiment conveyed in this passage is one that is echoed in many of the early Puritan covenants of New England, including this example from 1629, We covenant with the Lord and one with another, and do bind ourselves in the presence of God to walk together in all his ways, according as he is pleased to reveal himself unto us in his blessed word of truth. A couple of phrases that stand out in this covenant, which is from the Salem Church in 1629, are one with another and unto us. In effect, the Salem parish, along with many other congregations of the time with similar covenants, was making the claim that ultimate religious authority in determining God's ways were the people of the church, walking together in a covenant that extends not just upward toward God, but also outward toward one another. Tragically, as has been the case with most faith traditions, the Puritans did not extend the concept and practice of covenant beyond their own group. The Puritans may have delighted in each other, rejoiced together, mourned together, labored and suffered together, but they did not extend this sense of shared humanity to those outside of their group. It's so discordant, I think, from our own perspective to have these beautiful words about meekness, gentleness, patience, and liberality have come from the mouths of those who also condemned and killed others simply for having religious views that were different from their own. Where is the gentleness and liberality in the executioner's rope? As 21st century Unitarian Universalists, I hope we reject and learn from the intolerance of our religious forebears. In fact, much of the religious intolerance that exists in our country today, along with an alarming movement toward contemporary American theocracy, can be traced back to our Puritan ancestors. New evidence of this current trend toward religious intolerance can be seen in a recent poll from the Public Religion Research Institute, released just this past week, which found that nearly 30% of respondents agreed completely or in part with such statements as, being Christian is an important part of being truly American, and God has called Christians to exercise dominion over all areas of American society. 30% of all respondents agreed in whole or in part with those statements. It's easy to trace a through line from early American Puritans' belief in exceptionalism and dominionism to today's Christian nationalists. In fact, some of the very same exclusivist, anti-pluralist language is being used now that was used 400 years ago. However, the concept and practice of covenant, if conceived of in an equitable and inclusive way, can help us reimagine freedom as a means for responsible action toward our best and highest aspirations and loyalties. Loyalties that were expressed so well in many of those early Puritan covenants as walking together in mutual love and respect, with all brotherly love and mutual watchfulness, to the building up of one another in faith and love. So how are we to remember and regard our Puritan forebears? Are we to forget about them altogether? Are we to live in denial of the problematic aspects of our religious lineage and expunge them from our shared history? Are we to, in the words of this Puritan Valentine, simply say, let us never speak of this again. No, I don't think so. At least I hope not. The way forward is to take a clear-eyed look at our history as a nation, our history as a religious tradition, to call out the misdeeds and missteps of the past and hopefully learn from them, and to reclaim and reimagine key concepts like covenant that might be transformed and practiced differently in our own time. Being a pluralistic society is no easy task, and intolerance is always much easier and simpler than tolerance. But when Unitarianism and Universalism came together to form one united religious movement in 1961, they did so with a firm commitment to religious pluralism, not just out there somewhere in the world, but within and among our congregants and our congregations. Our contemporary UU religious movement, unlike the early American Puritan movement, is founded on the idea that pluralism and diversity of experience and belief can actually make us stronger and smarter. Diversity, when we learn how to embrace and manage it, forces us to question our views, beliefs, and institutions in a way that leads to new and better solutions to old problems. I hope and pray that we will remember the lessons of our religious past, both the tragic mistakes and the worthy aspirations, and that we will build something new that reflects these lessons, as well as our commitment to the love that transcends all differences, that calls us to transform ourselves and our world such that all might be liberated from the vile prisons of intolerance and hatred. May it be so. Amen.
Please rise again, body or spirit, to sing "We Are Building a New Way." We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working
building.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way.
We have a designated offering today, which will benefit the Red Cross and Red Crescent of Turkey and Syria to help those affected by the recent earthquakes. And how amazing is it that after almost a week of being still under collapsed buildings, more people are being found alive. Truly a miracle. If you'd like to make a gift via our online giving system, you can do so by going to sunnyhill.org and click on the button that says Online Giving, and then just follow the instructions. Or now you're allowed to take your electronic device out and give by text at 412-324-3130. Text the amount of your gift and the word special if you want your gift to go to the designated offering, or pledge if you want your gift to go to your 2023 Sunnyhill Pledge. And if you are writing a check, please make it out to UUCSH or Sunnyhill and put earthquake relief in the memo line. And for those of you who are here in person, we will be offering baskets be passing our offering baskets in just a moment. And as always, thank you for your generosity. Please join me in the words for extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame until we are together again.
A couple of brief announcements. Our beloved Conversations team is going to be holding another in a series of 8th Principle workshops here in the sanctuary starting at 11:30 after the service today. I encourage anyone who has any questions or concerns about this proposed 8th Principle, which we'll be voting on later this spring, to attend that. Also, for anyone that's a newcomer or a relative newcomer, we're having a Sunnyhill 101 informational session, which I will host along with our membership director, Bethany Thornton, at 11:15 today. And I believe we're going to be in the Oak Room, which is across the hallway towards the end of the hall. And that's just a short, like 45-minute session, questions and answers, and basic facts about Unitarian Universalism and about our congregation in particular. We also have a full-fledged membership class next Sunday, actually 2 Sundays from today, the 26th of February, for anyone that's interested in that. For now, we will close with these words. May the love that overcomes all differences, that heals all wounds, that puts to flight all fears, that reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us, now and always. Go in peace.